Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Jeff and Paper Gary. It is Sunday, February 15th. Didn't get a whole lot done. Well, I did get a whole lot done yesterday, but didn't get a whole lot of film-worthy work, if that's what we'll call it. So the less glamorous part of aircraft building, and that is dimpling, deburring, priming, all those things, right? So I did get the right elevator deburred, dimpled, primed, as well as the stiffeners for that. And I made that one stiffener. So I think if you remember from the last video, or I'm not sure if it'll even make it to a video because it was so little content, I screwed up one of the stiffeners and decided to make a stiffener out of some leftover stiffener that I had from the rudder. Now, kind of torn on that one, really. Like, structurally, I think it's fine. It doesn't look the prettiest, but it's going to get sealed up in the elevator, so we don't really care how it looks so much. And I'm very certain that it's safe. I am going to go the extra mile and call up Vans on Monday and see what they think, right? If they say, yeah, you're cool, it's a stiffener, it's not that big a deal, then we'll go ahead and put it in. If for some reason they can give me a valid concern as to why that would be a problem, then we'll just order a new piece and make the new one, and we'll get on with life. So I'm going to start with back riveting the stiffeners into the elevator today. And we'll leave that one out just in case Vans comes back and says that's a no bueno thing. And then we'll move on to the left elevator. So thanks for tuning in. Let's see what we learn.
Okay, so some good lessons learned on this one, as usual. Nothing too remarkable. The stiffeners are something that I just can't seem to wrap my head around, and I get the little notched indications incorrect sometimes, or forget them altogether. So there's a little bit of struggle on those things. One of them got cut too short, and I talked about that in the intro, and so we'll see if putting that in from a different stringer or a different stiffener is acceptable, right? So the holes will be on the flange side as well as the mating riveting side. But again, once we cut that thing down, I don't really think it's that big of an issue. We'll see what Vans has to say. The other thing, as I go through here and start installing these things, I don't realize it now. You'll see it in subsequent videos. But a couple of these things don't get trimmed on the what we'll call the leading edge side. I guess that is the side that mounts to the wings, or sorry, to the horizontal stab. And I don't realize it until much later. So you'll see and hear more about that in subsequent videos, and you'll see what I had to do to go fix it. For now, we're going to start working on this, and then along with this is some skeletal work. We'll call it the skeleton that goes inside there, and that counterbalance. So I think we talked about that already before. Not sure. But the counterbalance is a little bit of a tricky thing to get together, but ultimately it turned out okay. So we'll see more about that here, I think, in the future. You'll notice here on the skin that there's some Scotch brightening that has been done in certain spots. For whatever reason, my dimple die leaves a little bit of a scratch around here when I'm dimpling the holes, and they're superficial. They're really light. They come out with very little effort, but they just bug me. And so before I go put the rivet in, I hit it with a Scotch-Brite to make sure I remove that little bit of scratch that's in there, and just to give myself a little bit of peace of mind, I guess. It's nothing significant by any means. So we'll get through these things, and then we're going to take a short interruption, I guess, to give some status on the R710, which, if you were watching, was the part that I screwed up previously when I cut it too short. And so I have learned since then, sort of, more about that later, but have a plan to go and get that fixed properly. So I'll turn it over to Live Action Jeff here, and he'll talk more about the R710.
Quick break. I can't believe this just happened. Looking through a box of random parts that I had, searching for some of the left elevator parts, and I find, what do I need? The piece I botched up for the rudder that I just ordered from Vans. So my guess is this was part of the laser cut part issue that was replaced from the previous kit owner. So if you haven't watched all the videos, you may not know I purchased this tail kit used. And so there's a second 7R10 here at my disposal. So hopefully I can get in touch with Vans early tomorrow morning and cancel that order and save myself 25 bucks.
So as fate would have it, I did not get in touch with Vans. I got in touch with Vans. The part was already packaged up, and I didn't want to have them have to unpackage and go dig it all up. It was only a $25 part, and so I just let them proceed with the order. That will be a wise choice as we see in the future. I won't go into any more detail now and spoil it, but it was a good thing that I didn't cancel it. We'll just leave it at that. So here we are going through some of the spar work for the elevator, and there are a couple pieces that are like backing plates, I guess, where the hinge points are. And so there's one that goes on the inside, which you have to radius the edges so it nestles down or sits into the bend radius of the spar a little bit better. Not so much that it mates up, but more so that it without radiusing those edges, it prevents it from sitting flush against the web of the spar. So you got to take a file to that, or you could use your disc sander or your Scotch-Brite wheel if you wanted to sit there for a long time, I guess, and round those edges off a little bit. And then there is a corresponding back plate that goes on there as well. So the spar is really sandwiched between these two reinforcement doublers. Nothing too remarkable there, just part of the process. And then this is where we start getting into, I think this is the buildup of some of the ribs, which will then go have the counterbalance attached to it. Now, the thing about the counterbalance is you'll get two of them in your kit. One of them gets cut down, right? So as you're putting these things together, you'll notice that your, I think it's the left elevator, has the trim tab associated with it. And in there is a trim tab servo motor. And so the counterbalance required for that is far less because you have to account for the mass of the servo, right? So instructions for the left side say to trim this down to a certain size, and then instructions for the right, you just put the whole thing in there. Now, these are not precision cut pieces or cast pieces of lead. They look like they were cast in maybe a Ziploc baggie with some foam around them. They're pretty crude, but they do the job. And you'll see here in a little bit that there's a bit of a struggle to get this piece of metal around the lead counterbalance and lining up with the holes in the rib. And you'll see that piece of metal there right on the right side of my workbench here. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of head scratching as you try to figure out how this thing goes together and how you're supposed to make these holes line up. And so you try all these things and you're pulling on there. And one thing I will say is, you've seen me before, and you can use a little pick to line up holes. But this is only aluminum we're working with. So if you get a steel pick in there and you try to pull this aluminum too far, you're going to start elongating your holes. So be very careful if you think that is going to help you get past this lead block. I don't think it will. Ultimately, what I did, and you'll see here in a little bit, was to have to take a little bit different approach. I did remove a little bit of the lead. The way that it kind of made it up with the ribs there stood for a little bit of removal. It's kind of curved, and you're mating up to a flat surface. So I just took a file and a couple passes, very little, just a few passes over the apex of that lead block to help it sit down a little bit. I can't say that it really gained a whole lot, but it did help give a little bit more of a flat surface to where I have to go drill some holes then because some bolts go through this. So once you get this all together, you match drill some holes through that strap into the ribs, and two bolts go in there to hold things in place. So we'll talk more about that in the future. Right now, you're going to see me, trying to figure this out. Called up my technical advisor. He said it's one of those things you just kind of have to work at it and get those holes to line up. But when I put this all together, I noticed that there is a gap in the corners from where that lead strap kind of wraps around, or sorry, that aluminum strap wraps around the lead block. And it's not a very big gap. It's maybe big enough to be able to slide a toothpick in there, probably not even that big. It was very, very little. But I thought, maybe if I could remove that gap, that would be enough length on each side that I gain to line up those holes, because they weren't very far off, maybe half a hole, maybe a little bit more. So you'll see me here take it over to the vise, and I put one of my bucking bars in the vise for a support, and then got a rawhide mallet out and gave it a couple taps with the mallet to help form that aluminum strap around the contour of the lead block. And that was all I needed. That was enough help to get it to line up and got me enough edge distance there. So over to live action, Jeff.
All right, friends, let's take a minute to talk about this counterbalance. This is the left elevator counterbalance weight. Unlike the right side, this one does not get cut. So the left side has a trim tab servo that sits in here and adds some weight. So you need the full weight of the lead block to counteract that. The right side does not have that trim servo, and so you end up cutting off some of that weight to make up for the lack of weight there. So this is a real struggle to get this thing in. So what you have is the 703, which is the outboardmost rib of the elevator, and then the 704, which is immediately inboard. And those two cleco together, right? So they sandwich together, nothing in between them. And then the spar kind of butts up in this area here and gets all riveted together eventually. But in order to put this together, you take the 703 and the 704, you cleco it together, then you put this lead block in here and put this 713 skin around it. So let's talk about a few things that are universal laws of nature, right? So two bodies of mass cannot occupy the same space. As you're looking at these things and trying to put them together, it is clear that something has to go away, move, give, right? Because it's not quite right. And the other thing that we can ascertain is this lead casting was made in like a Ziploc baggie or something, right? It is not smooth. It is not precision, right? It's ugly. So I can't imagine that there was a whole lot of finite math, engineering, whatever involved in the sizing, shaping, casting, and then accounting for the amount of material that you're going to remove for the drilling piece. So I could not find a video where somebody went into great detail about the installation of this. I think most people probably don't want to admit to the swearing and cursing and whatever means they had to do to make this thing work. So I'm going to share with you a little bit what I did. I filed it. I'm not going to lie. I took a pretty aggressive file and I took off just a little bit of material. So I say aggressive file, nothing too gnarly. I wasn't in there with a wood rasp. But there's a big curve to this side of the thing, and I knocked down the apex of that curve just a little bit. I think that might help when I go to the drilling, even though I have to match drill the skins. It's a little bit more flat instead of the curved. I shaved just a hair off of the other side of it too, where it sits up against these ribs. Now, when I say minor, I mean really, really, really minor. I did not remove any kind of substantial material. I don't believe that it is going to make any difference when it comes to the counterbalance of this and how it works. If I find out later that I was wrong, well, then I'm going to have a whole lot of work to have to redo. But I feel confident that it's going to work. The other thing that I did is I took a rawhide mallet and kind of formed this metal around the curvature of this lead block. So when you put this together, it's pretty clear to see that there's a significant curve on the lead, and one of the areas where you're having problems is right here in these corners. That metal isn't sitting flush, and so it's kind of pushing up this leg a little bit and not allowing the pre-punch holes to line up. So you have to bring that down somehow. I put I'll walk you over here to my vise. I put a bucking bar in the vise that was able to fit up under here and support this rib. and then use this rawhide hammer to very gently tap and shape the metal around the curvature of there. So as you can see, it's not really deformed or anything. It's not beat to snot with a hammer. It's just enough to help ease those corners back into sitting flush, which gain you a little bit of ground when it comes to lining up these holes. So that's it. There's not a whole lot to say about this other than it's a pain in the butt. Be very careful. Your first and my first intuition was to just stick like a pick or something in there and try to align those things. And what that does is you're going to lose. The stainless steel pick or whatever you use in there and the lead block are stronger than the thin material in that hole, and you'll start to elongate those holes, and you don't want to do that. So take your time with it a little bit, kind of look at it, see what needs to happen, make your own choices. I'm not going to say that mine were the exact right ones. We'll see, but keeping it centered in there is a big portion of it. It's like when you first put this thing in here, you try to wrap the skin around it, it'll be off and everything, and it's kind of a pain, right? Just work at it. If you get frustrated, step away from it for a minute, come back to it. I did a couple of times, and it will eventually go. But I highly recommend the rawhide hammer and shaping that metal around the block. I think that was probably where I gained the most ground. So there you have it, folks.
So I don't think I've seen or heard others mention it in videos, but really that rawhide hammer and forming that strap around the contour of the block, I think is the way to go. And honestly, if you do it right and you're not all crazy with that mallet, it'll give a nice cleaner look. This is nothing but drilling, patiently drilling through the lead blocks into the ribs so you can get the holes. All I will say is use lots of lube, go slow, and don't drill a pilot hole. I think you'll hear me talk about that in my closeout. That causes some problems. So the other big thing on here is make sure that you're really, really straight on in all axes before you start drilling.
Okay, a couple of tips and tricks when it comes to drilling the holes in the lead blocks. So this is tricky because you're drilling through the match. There's a hole in this skin right here, the 713, that you match drill through this lead. And what you have to do is come out the other side. I don't know if you can see that real well, in the center or center-ish of this flange in order to put a nut and bolt through there. So take your time, make sure that you're holding your drill nice and straight, not tilted off anywhere on both those holes. Now, I think I did okay. This one here looks a little close, but I think it'll be fine. What I will say is go very slowly, use a lot of oil, and I made the mistake of using a smaller bit as a pilot hole for the first go. I don't recommend doing that. When you get to the number 12 size bit that goes in there, it tends to get real grabby. And when it gets real grabby, that's when you're going to start doing damage and breaking drill bits. And so on that second one, I had to do a little bit higher speed, more speed than I really wanted to, but then real light pressure and going in just to where it touched and pull back just a little bit so that I can make real slow progress and real fine chip on that hole, or else it would have bound up, or it would bind up and snap that bit off inside there, and you definitely don't want to do that. So go slow with it, take your time, and hold that drill straight, and you'll be good to go. Hey guys, I went inside to wash my hands after working with all that lead and realized it's already 4 o'clock, and I still have Sunday chores to get to and 2 security cameras I got to mount on the house. So we're gonna call it quits for today. Feel pretty accomplished. I didn't ruin any parts, and we got quite a bit of work done. So did some back riveting on those stiffeners, got parts primed and painted, found a part that I didn't know that I had, so that's nice. And I think I can mark it from my old one enough to understand where I went wrong and stay out of that danger zone again and make sure that I don't undercut it too much. So that's all for now. Thank you for tuning. Oh, one more thing. I woke up this morning to 80 subscribers. So thank you, everybody. We were just at 50, it seems, a couple weeks ago, and now jumped up to that 80 mark and looking forward to rounding 100. So thanks, everybody, for watching. Please tune in, like, share, subscribe. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. This is Jeff and Paper Gary out.